Well, hey there, everybody. It's Michael Osinski.
And it's also Tyler Esselman.
And you are listening to This One Goes to 11.
This One Goes to 11 is our podcast where we invite someone on each week to make their case for what they believe is a perfect album.
So perfect that 10 out of 10 just isn't good enough.
Hi, Michael. We're back. We had a little break between recordings and stuff.
We did. And did you notice that talking about like things going to 11, did you notice they've set a release date for Spinal Tap 2?
I did notice that.
Oh,
For
yeah.
those of you out there who may not get the reference in our title, it is a reference to the seminal film by Christopher Guest and Rob Reiner. This is Spinal Tap. Go watch it if you haven't watched it. If you listen to this podcast, you're going to like that movie.
Yeah.
And
I think
especially
that's-
if you like big bottoms. That's another
Yeah.
one, another reason to watch that movie.
No comment. Well, Tyler, we're getting real close to our 100th episode.
We are, yeah.
But I'm excited for our conversation today for many reasons. Who are we talking to today, Tyler?
We are talking to Madelaine Strickland. Madelaine does not remember a time when she did not love theater, especially musicals, which naturally led her to pursue a degree and career in theater, mainly as a stage manager. Following a winding career path, Madelaine moved into the event industry and has now worked as both producer and show caller for the last 15 plus years. Madelaine proudly nurtures the love of music and theater in her daughter as they dance and sing around the house every day. Also, Madelaine has asked that we provide the following employer disclaimer, I guess you could say, that the views and opinions expressed are solely her own and do not reflect the views of her employer, which I think could probably apply to all of our guests. We could probably...
We should probably just start saying that. I think
yeah, we could
might be,
probably
yeah,
should.
yeah.
It'd be
Just
a good
like
idea.
a thing. Yeah.
Our guest is Madelaine Strickland. Madelaine, welcome to the pod.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And a little disclaimer, dear listeners, I may refer to Madelaine as Maddie because I've known her for almost 30 years because we went to college together. And so so I can call her that, but you can't, dear listeners. All right.
No, that's totally fine. There are like 5 names I answer to, and most of them begin with M's, but some of them don't, and that's totally fine. I'll answer to just about anything. So all good.
Which leads us to the next very important thing is that you should feel very free to call my lovely co-host Mike if you so choose. I won't judge you for it. I can't call him that, but you certainly can.
I'll try very hard not to, but it's probably going to happen at some point.
Yeah, I feel like, so dear listeners, Maddie is part of like a core group of friends from college that we were, lunch table friends, dorm friends. Like we all lived like within, we could get to each other's rooms within like seconds of each other.
That's awesome.
You're not really making us sound really cool, just for the record.
Maddie, we've never been cool.
Hey!
Now we're cool, but like we're cool because we were not cool before. I don't know.
You paid for it on the front end.
Here. I'm digging a big hole here.
No, this was a thing that Joe Mantegna said to our acting graduating class about the acting career, the career in the arts. He says, some of you are going to pay for it on the front end and some of you are going to pay for it in the back end. And most of you are going to pay for it on the front end. It's the same with coolness. We paid for it on the front end and now we're cool,
When did he say that to you at your commencement?
No, he said it as like a panel when we went to LA.
That doesn't seem very encouraging.
I don't know. It was it sticks with me. I think about it,
Anyway, Maddie, we've tasked you with something very important here. So for those of our listeners who did not read the episode description, please tell us, what album hast thou brought before the panel today?
I have brought the original cast recording of Lempicka, which was on Broadway a year ago, spring of 2024.
I would say there's probably a good chance that most of our listeners, unless they're okay, Madelaine, would you say this is niche?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. So I think there's a good chance this one certainly passed me by, and I pride myself on knowing at least a little bit about contemporary musical theater. And before you nominated this, I had not heard of it at all.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think that's true for a lot of people. And I will also disclose that I have a friend who worked on this show, so I have
Gotcha.
heard about it for a couple of years. But I'm also a person that goes to see your show and then it's like, wow, you were in a show.
Yeah.
Good you.
I'm kind of
You
like that
carried
too.
those props, right? So
Yeah.
I want to make sure that, my love for this album and how brilliant I think it really is because I really do think it's really brilliant and not because, I know somebody on the thing.
Right.
But yeah, unfortunately, it was not on Broadway for very long. It had its run cut short, and it does have a pretty great cult following of people that are really devoted to it,
Ooh.
and it rightfully so. And I think I really hope that it comes back in a couple of different ways.
Yeah.
Some regional theaters might be really great fits, and some probably not.
Yeah.
So that is certainly the hope I have for it.
Amazing. Well, for those of you who want to get a little bit more context, a little more meat on the bone, if you will, with the story of Lempicka, we have a very convenient segment to get you caught up. Michael, what's that segment called?
That segment is called The Beginner's Guide to the Original Broadway Cast Recording of Lempicka in 60 Seconds.
And you're doing it today, aren't you, buddy?
I sure am. I have sort of coasted through this season by having to do very few of these, haven't I, Tyler?
It's only right. It's only right. It's karmically we're karmically aligned, you and I, over the course of about eight complete seasons now. But you are better at this than I am. So I'm excited to hear how you sum this one up.
Well, Maddie will get to decide how I did. After I've done this, Maddie, you get to evaluate my case using whatever scale you choose. So,
All right, I'm ready.
All right.
I've got 60 seconds on the clock. Ready, Michael?
Sure am.
Starting in 3, 2, 1. Ale.
Is it possible for a musical to be too queer and anti-fascist? On Broadway, the answer is yes. Lempicka is the musical that reimagines the life of Polish painter Tamara de Lempicka, who sacrifices everything she has, even her own body, much to the chagrin of her husband, to escape the Russian Revolution with her family, who then turns to painting to support her family with the help of the wacko-fascist futurist Filippo Tommaso Marinetti, and who eventually falls in love with a Parisian prostitute. It is the brainchild of playwright Carson Kreitzer, known for writing cleverly experimental plays about Oppenheimer and serial killer Eileen Wuornos before the movies were made out of them, and composer Matt Gould, whose musical Invisible Thread Witness Uganda debuted at Second Stage in New York and ART in Boston. The production's design drew heavily from constructivism, the early 20th century art movement associated with Soviet socialist propaganda, the Russian avant-garde, and theater artists like Vsevolod Meyerhold. But even with talented artists like Amber Iman and Eden Espinosa in the cast, Tony Award-winning director Rachel Chapkin at the helm, and a small handful of Tony nominations for the show, the production only played 41 performances on Broadway before closing in 2024.
Man, you're good.
That was great.
Damn good. Yeah. All right, Madelaine, you're about to start building your case. So why don't you give us a little assessment of how Michael did in summing up the context of this show and this recording in 60 seconds?
Yeah, that was perfect. And as far as I can tell, that's like a really good reminder on why I don't make my living writing things, because that's exactly what I would have said had I had those skills. So yes, that is exactly it. It's such a great show, and it didn't have a long enough run, and it has an amazing cast and songs that make you want to take to the street, which, we might need in the near future. And also things that make you want to, that all the things that are really wonderful about musicals follow through in this show as well. And the hope for Broadway in the future of not just another revival of something, like letting some really new and wonderful, beautiful works shine through.
Heck yeah.
A previous guest from the season, Julianne Lang, sort of leading the campaign. She wants, was a 10-year moratorium on jukebox musicals and movie adaptation musicals. She wants original stuff. So
I went to see a show with my sister a couple of weeks ago, and I remembered it vaguely. I remembered a couple of songs from, growing up with them, but I couldn't remember the plot. I knew that I didn't want to take my daughter. That's all I could really vaguely remember. And it was Sweet Charity.
Sweet Charity.
Sweet Charity.
Yeah.
And it is so bad.
Yeah,
it is so bad.
And the rhythm of life is a powerful beat, puts a tingle in your fingers and a thing. I was in that show in high school, actually. It was my freshman year musical.
Yeah, let me tell you, it hasn't really aged well.
No, it hadn't
And
back then either.
it's so bad. And the curtain came down at the end, and I literally turned to my sister and said out loud, why would anyone do this show? It is so
Yeah,
terrible.
right.
And I'm so glad I didn't bring my daughter, because that's one of the things that, that is so great about Lempicka, is talking about, flawed, but better female characters in musicals than some of the ones that I grew up with.
Yeah.
So let's have some new works.
Hell yeah. Oh, but okay. Is Big Spender still iconic?
It's still really
though,
good.
right?
Yeah,
Still
okay.
iconic.
It's still really good.
that trombone coming in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't get over that. I'll always
It's
love
still
that.
very good. But okay. We were saying that so my sister had a really good idea that there could be, sorry to go off topic a little bit.
Take that
but
tangent.
You could pull a bunch of really great songs from musicals of like women of ill repute.
Oh yeah.
So you could do Big Spender, you could do some stuff from Chicago, you could do Don't Bet Your Heart. You could pull all this stuff and really make it a dance show, so there's not, it's light on plot or whatever. And that's really the only reason any of us should ever hear anything from that show ever.
Sex Work the musical. Like it would be Sex Work, the musical. I see it now.
There is that other show. What's the name of that other show?
What, The Life?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a better title. That's a great title. That's an amazing. They did me dirty there.
I don't think the musical did so well though. So maybe your title is better.
Bummer.
No, it didn't do very well. No.
Anyway, before we dive too much deeper into Lempicka, we have a question we ask all our guests to get the conversation started, which is, what is and has been your relationship with music writ large?
Deep. Very
sweet.
Yeah. I grew up with musicals. I grew up with music in our house all the time, on a record player, on an 8-track player. I had music constantly. But it was mostly musicals with a little bit of Kingston Trio and Peter, Paul and Mary. And I like that you both reacted to Kingston Trio, which was excellent.
This has not been invoked yet.
Yes,
Peter, Paul, and Mary, we've talked about. Yes,
sure.
Kingston Trio, good one.
Yeah, yes. But so that was my whole. I had music constantly, a good playlist of oldies as well in there as well. But really, musicals. I was a musical kid. I acted them out in my living room. There's a little bit of age difference between me and my elder sisters, and so I was by myself doing all the parts all the time, except on Christmas Eve before midnight mass. My sisters and I reenacted Tevye's Dream all together every year, all the parts. It's excellent.
Wait a minute. So when you got cast in Fiddler on the Roof,
yes,
in college, did you bring this up to us? Did you even tell us that you had been doing this for years before you got actually cast in Fiddler on the Roof?
Seems doubtful, but I was not playing. I did not play Golda in my sister's production of Tevye's Dream.
Right.
So I was miscast in college as Golda. I should have played all the parts I'd been playing my entire childhood.
You should have made a case for that, probably.
Yeah, probably. I
would watch that.
Yeah, a one-person version of Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah.
You mean the version of Fiddler on the Roof where the lighting made it look like you were all in a desert as opposed to Siberia?
It had some challenges.
We do what we can. We do what we can with punky theater, right? That's the fun stuff.
Anyway.
It was what it was. But so that was really, so I was a real theater nerd musical kid. And then actually when I got to college and met Mike and a few other people, it really occurred to me that I didn't know a lot of pop music. And my friends were talking about whatever. And I was like, yeah, but Annie, man, I gotta go back to my room and belt out Rent. I gotta go. I don't know what you're talking about. And that was kind of embarrassing to me. And I didn't really, that's so nice, Tyler. Thanks. but it wasn't as big of, I didn't really think about it as much in college. That just was me, and we were in theater, and I was who I was, and I just was existing. And then out of college too, that certainly had come up a couple of times as well, of thinking of things I just didn't know that other people kind of knew kind of in the ether. And then I dove a little bit deeper. So from a lot of help from friends and relationships and, people gave me playlists and I listened to a lot of stuff and just started really eating it all. And I have a brain, and part of this is in my career too, that understands music really well. And I'm a music lover, but not necessarily, I should not be on Broadway. And the Gould role in college was, I'm good. That was probably the most I should be singing in public. But I really, really love it. And I understand how I understand the through line, and it has helped me call a million gazillion shows and understanding the beats and the downbeats and when it's going to crescendo and when we're going to have that button to make the lighting and the scenic and everything look really spectacular. So post college, it was really just absorbing it all and getting and realizing I actually knew a lot more than I had given myself credit for. And including in, when I met my husband, he, in those early days, you're like talking about music and stuff. And he was like, I'm really into dubstep. And I was like, what the hell's dubstep? Like, what is that? And then he played it and I was like, all right, like, okay, like I can see this sometimes, like, okay. And that's one of the things that we, really proudly have in our house is like eclectic everything. We went to a children's opera one weekend and the next weekend we went to Monster Trucks. And my child can sing all of Hamilton and she knows she has a favorite dubstep song. And like she like, there's just a little bit of everything. So my, little bit spicy brain there really needs the music in the background and to get stuff done and to think about it and to really let the emotions I may not have always been expressing as a kid can come out in all of these songs as I, pull my playlist. I have a playlist that's literally called like recovery songs after dealing with your boomer parents. And then you like, you get into it and then you go from there.
Yeah.
I have a fond memory of when you and I both were discovering music together, which is when we studied in London. Because
you were in London with him.
Okay. Yeah, and
cool.
it was like because I don't know, the way the pop music over there was just a little different, and so none of us had heard of a lot of the like popular bands or artists.
Ooh,
and so exactly, that's like, who even sung that? I can't remember who sang
Daphne
that.
And Celeste.
That's right. Thank you.
That's what they call it. That's two of our nicknames, right? Daphne and Celeste.
Oh yeah. But I just remember, like, I think I bought like a Brit Awards compilation from that trip because it just sort of, it was like all of the Brit pop, and I don't mean that in the way that like music critics talk about Brit pop, but like pop music in Britain. I felt like we were all discovering all of that together, and that's like one of my favorite memories from being in London is like all of us listening to crazy weird music in the flat.
Yeah, absolutely. And going to those really bizarre clubs. And then I remember also like dancing in a club too. Ooh, stick you, your mama too?
And your
mama
daddy.
Too?
Yes.
And your daddy.
Yes.
And like knowing that the actual British people in the room with us were horrified and being like, this is our jam. Like, we got to dance to Daphne and Celeste. Like it being like, this is just a ridiculous thing that is going to be the song that we talk about 30 whatever years later.
All right, Madelaine, you said you kind of said that I'm sure you're a better singer than you're giving yourself credit for. Let's just put that out there. But you're talking about this sort of familiarity with how music works. Does that come from, were you playing music as well? Did you play any instruments? Is that something that you do? Or is it just from sort of like you said, the way that your mind works of getting this understanding of musical structure? I'd love to know more about that.
I did play a musical instrument in middle school and freshman year of high school, and I played the French horn very poorly.
Sweet.
And I love the French horn with my whole heart.
It's beautiful.
And I think it's so beautiful, and I love it. And I played it so badly. And I was last chair for 4 years and not competitive about it. Like, hey, what's up? I'm down here. Like, see you guys after band. I also went to high school in Texas. And so, there's football and then there's band. And that
Right.
like it was the marching band. It was like a really big thing. And the French horn doesn't march. They made me play a different instrument, which
Which
is
one did you play?
mean. The mellophone,
Oh
which is
yeah,
the
yeah.
marching right, and
The marching version.
you have to switch hands.
Hmm.
And I thought that was dumb.
Yeah.
And I've had this exact personality, and so then I said to them, "That's dumb," and I don't want to do that. And they couldn't really give me a lot of. I'm a rule follower if I understand the rule, and
Uh-uh.
there were rules in band that I didn't agree with and didn't like. And then instead of someone explaining them to me, which in hindsight, you don't actually have to explain everything to 16-year-olds. I get that now.
Right.
But at the time, I was horrified that no one could really explain to me the things that they were telling me I had to do. At any rate, so I played the French horn for 4 years, very, very poorly. But
Nice.
I always have loved music, and and I can read music, and I still can read
Gotcha.
music, and can follow all of that. And I just it was more of, I think, having grown up with music and understanding the cadence and the
Hmm.
the plot lines of musical songs from musicals, that really helped me to understand how other more kind of pop culture-y other kind of music works,
Yeah.
so that I can see what is coming down the page.
Okay, well, so this is fast forwarding big time to, Lempicka is very, very current. So there's a lot of timeline we're going to skip here. But we would love to transition into talking about how your relationship with this album in particular, and I guess in a grander sense, this show. We are talking about why the album is perfect, but we contextually we'll have to wait for the theater podcast to come out too to really dig into the finer points of this. But tell us a little bit more about how you met Lempicka.
I have worked with Matt Gould in the past on a lot of events, and is certainly
Cool.
a friend, and have heard about it both from him and then online and all that kind of stuff. And so when a few of the songs came out in 2022 from their La Jolla run, and I listened to those, and I was like, "Oh my God, this song perfection. Like, this is like the best song. I really love it. I love Georgia Budd. I think he's so amazing." Am I
Yeah,
saying his name right? I hope so.
I think so.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Sure.
But so I was like, I really loved it. And then as a supportive friend, I listened and watched that all on Instagram, and there's amazing marketing. They had really, really great, great, great marketing. And then when the album actually came out, I started from the top. And I was like, "Oh my God, this is way better than the La Jolla production," or
Yeah.
at least these three songs. And really, really, really fell in love with Don't Bet Your Heart. I just think it's just so spectacular.
Mm.
And I think I could listen to Amber sing the newspaper. I don't care. Like, she could do whatever. And that's when I really started to dive deeper into them. And, you know, parenting is a really big part of my life, and we're all trying to do things a little bit differently than maybe we were raised, and that's really a conscious decision for me, and thinking about what my child is looking at in the world and the future and all of that, and thinking about these songs and wanting to get into her brain the stuff that is the strength, so that when you are having a hard day, you are not having any of that negative talk. You're kind of like lifting yourself up. And these songs were doing that.
Mm.
And I wanted more and more and more of them, and to dive deeper into each song. And then I did go and see it. I before it closed, I went to New York to see the show. We had planned on going in the summer with my daughter, and couldn't because it was closing.
It's
And
closing.
so
Yeah.
I zipped over by myself for like 38 hours or something ridiculous. And the show is really spectacular. There's a few things I may have suggested changes, but
Yeah.
that's a separate kind of conversation to dive deeper there. It's more of talking about the strength of this female character.
Right.
And although I'm a lifelong ally, I'm not in the queer community, and so there is only a certain I only want to talk a little bit about, how it affects me as a woman and theater and the part that it's representing. I can't, speak to those parts because it's not necessarily representing me, but really talk about how the stuff that she is going through isn't just from then. It's a lot of the stuff that we're all talking about now as well.
Yeah, it seemed strangely current to listen to it. I mean, it also reminded me of, like, for a brief stint in Philly, I had to teach the theater history 2 class. And so when Marinetti came up, I'm like, I know who that guy was. Total nut job, like total crazy nut job. And like I did a little bit of research and discovered that technically Lempicka and Marinetti never met, if I'm not mistaken.
That part was fake. Yeah, that part was imagined. Yes.
Yeah. But like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. Without turning this into a political podcast, I do feel like time is a circle, history repeats itself, and it just struck me as very current in a way that I guess I wasn't expecting for something that looked on the outside, because of its aesthetic and because the marketing looked like a period piece essentially, and it really was not that at all.
Yeah, I exactly. And that's exactly how I felt about it too. And I think that was very known to the production team. I have no idea for sure, but it seems to me that they were very aware of what they were saying. And, and some of the stuff that was pulled out, like history's a bitch and so am I. And like, some of those one kind of liners that were pulled out allude to some of that, but it's deeper in that. If you like, if the third or fourth time if you're listening through our time, and this like revolution and the heartbeat of it, and the pressure and the pressing forward of all of that choir and the chorus is really, it's deep in your bones, and it's stuff that we're talking about and we're listening to on the news, and we're talking about repeat of history, and we're seeing ridiculous, insane things. And this is the stuff that Lempicka talks about it in the show. She literally says, like, she escapes from Russia, right, because she sells her jewelry, or she gives away her jewelry, right? So then later in the show, she literally is talking about how I have to sell the paintings to get the money to turn it into jewelry so that I can travel with jewelry and escape, because she sees what's coming. And she's talking about in the Paris will always be Paris, like, no, like, we're not safe here. And everyone else is like, it's fine, the stock market's crashing, like everything's fine. And she is the one person that's trying to say, I mean, I know there's other people, but in the show she's saying this is coming again and we are not safe, and I have to protect these small circle of people that are important to me, because these are the people that I had to get out last time, and these are the people I'm getting out this time.
So when you talk about how this piece is in dialogue with maybe the other musicals that you were close to your heart already, what do you feel like it does differently than maybe, because I see there's a lot of Les Mis kind of in sort of the way that it's presented in the revolutionary mindset, the in the streets, like we've already talked about. So what would you say on a lyrical level this show is doing differently than maybe some of those other classic shows?
Yeah, I think it's giving a more realistic sample, or not sample, but a realistic I almost said mirror. Oh, we've held a mirror up to real relationships. I don't know who I became then when I was about to say that, but it's true. It's talking a little bit more about real relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, like West Side Story's one hand, one heart. Is not quite how I communicate with my husband on a daily basis. We don't usually sing that one back and forth to each other. In The Music Man, Till There Was You, that is ridiculous. Like, I mean, there's just these My White Knight, right? Like, there's just these songs that are saying like, oh my God, I was nothing, and oh my God, it's you. And in Lempicka, there is a different kind of conversation. A new woman, right? They're talking about, everyone has had that point in a relationship where you're like, right. I have to, like, I am in love with you. I'm kind of redevoting myself to that of like, right. Like, even though you were really annoying and your shoes are all over the house and like, I don't know, like, why can you not load a dishwasher? Like, seriously, what's wrong with you? But also, oh my God, you're a really great guy and I love you. And like, here's the things I really love about you. We're together. This is our family. Okay, here we go, kind of idea of it. And Speed is, I think, a really complicated song, right? Like, I kind of wish it was two parts because the second half with Rafaela, that's sometimes the stuff I want to listen to just on like constant repeat. But literally, they're having this fight, and Lempicka can't say anything right to Rafaela. Rafaela's like, what am I to you? And she's like, a jewel. And she's like, oh, I'm a jewel. Really? Right? Like, you can't. And then you're like, okay. But like a really nice jewel, right? Like, you just like can't, like, so completely realistic of arguments we've all had in real life where you're like, I'm trying really hard to have this conversation with you. Oh my God, why are you so angry? Right? But it's also at this point in the story and in their relationship that they can't move forward in the way they've been currently living. Decisions have to be made. And whether or not Lempicka makes the right one or the wrong one or how that goes and what she decides from there. And but it feels so much more realistic than the women that I grew up listening to in musicals. I mean, my child listens to Lempicka. She does. She knows the words. She knows the music. She sings it on her own in the backyard, standing on her jungle gym, like to the whole world. And I would much rather her do that than like, you've got to be carefully taught. And like my corner of the sky. And like, what's the other one from Pippin, I guess I'll miss the man. Like, the amount of songs there are that's like, I love this guy, but he's kind of a jerk, but I love him anyways, right? Like Adelaide's Lament, As Long as He Needs Me from Oliver, which is like the most heart-wrenching, horrible song. But I want my child and my daughter to be singing and acting out the songs that empower her. Matilda? Yeah. On it.
Matilda's great. Yeah.
Matilda, baby.
Love Matilda.
Legally Blonde. On it. Yeah. Right? Like, we are like Chicago. Like, these are the shows. Six is a show we know really, really well. And those are the shows that in those right? She's only 6. So like, these are the songs that are deep in her bones that she's going to know when she's an old woman because they're the ones that are part of her core.
Well, you've mentioned some tracks already from the musical and you technically gave us 3 for possible standout tracks. So we're going to ask you to commit to one right now. If you had to really like narrow it down to your standout track from the musical, what would you say it is?
Oh, it's Don't Bet Your Heart. I mean, like, it's Don't Bet Your Heart. No. Yes, Mike?
Well, we got to let them listen to a little bit, and then you can talk about it.
But I had so much more to
say. You're going to get a chance to say it. We got to give the people what they want, and then you can follow it up. So, dear listeners, if you haven't heard "Don't Bet Your Heart" from Lempicka, here's a little snippet of it.